A major shift in Berlin as Germany says it's ready to back an immediate European Union sanction on Russian oil. A move that could allow Europe to place an embargo in a matter of days as the war in Ukraine continues. Under heavy fire, nominees for President-elect Yoon top officials face a barrage of questioning at the National Assembly. Confirmation hearings are set to resume on Tuesday, a week before Inauguration Day. Paving the way for a data revolution. South Korea's next government plans an all-out reform of digital systems to spark innovation for citizens and businesses alike. On Tuesday, the Transition Committee plans to announce more priority agendas for the Yoon administration.
Hello and welcome to New Day at Arirang. It's Tuesday, May 3rd, 8 a.m. here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm Lee Seung-jae.
I'm Oh-Young. Thanks as always for joining us this morning, because over the next hour we'll be giving you the biggest headlines of the day and experts' insights on some of the key issues facing Korea and the rest of the world. Germany says it's now ready to stop buying oil from Russia, clearing the way for a European Union ban on crude imports from Moscow.
That's right, and this comes as the region's largest economy says it could weather shortages and price hikes. Kim Yo-sun with our top story.
In a major shift in its stance, Germany says it's prepared to support an EU-wide embargo on Russian oil. To this end, the country's foreign minister said in a televised interview Monday that Berlin is making preparations. The comments come a day after Germany's economy and climate minister explained that he expects his country to be fully independent of Russian crude oil imports by the end of summer. Meanwhile, the EU's energy policy chief says that paying in rubles for Russian oil as requested by Moscow would breach the bloc's sanctions.
Paying in rubles through the conversion mechanism managed by the Russian public authorities and a second dedicated account in Gazprom Bank is a violation of the sanctions and cannot be accepted.
The 27-member bloc further explained that there is no immediate risk to the region's supply security, with deliveries to Poland and Bulgaria continuing via alternative routes from Greece and Germany. In related news, the U.S. believes that the Russian military's chief of the general staff visited Ukraine's Donbas region last week. But a U.S. defense official explains that Washington cannot confirm media reports that he was wounded while fighting there. The Pentagon official said that the Russians have made only, quote, minimal gains in Donbas over the past days. The official also added that Moscow has launched over 2,100 missiles at Ukrainian targets since the onset of its invasion, saying that the U.S. has sent over 5,000 Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine so far. The official further explained that the assistance does not impact on Washington's defense readiness condition. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's parliament continues to hold confirmation hearings for the next Yoon government's top officials. The Prime Minister nominee Han Duck-soo was put under the spotlight on Monday. The former PM of the nominee era used his time to emphasize the goal of improving people's livelihoods. Lee Kyung-eun tells us more.
Former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo stood before the National Assembly on Monday, asking lawmakers to give him the chance to serve the public for one last time as PM of the first cabinet under the incoming Yoon administration. And Han, once he gets the job, says he will make improving people's livelihoods his utmost priority.
I will prioritize stabilizing people's livelihoods and use all possible policy measures, especially by blocking any factors that cause volatility in consumer prices.
Trying to restore the role he served during the nominee administration, the 72-year-old spoke of his 40 years of experience in state affairs, including his role in leading the South Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. And this time, he says, his role lies in aiding South Korea's economic revival in the new era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
I will boldly scrap regulations and support the growth of future industries to bring about new growth momentum.
Han's confirmation hearing comes as the initial session fell apart last week due to boycotts from the soon-to-be main opposition Democratic Party and the minor Progressive Justice Party, citing Han's failure to submit requested data, mainly regarding his hefty salary at a law firm and real estate transactions. The hearing will continue until Tuesday, with the DP likely to continue its attack over those allegations with Yoon's People Power Party aiming to defend Han. Support from the DP, which holds the majority in parliament, is critical for Han, as the PM is the only cabinet post in South Korea that requires parliamentary approval. Meanwhile, hearings for 5 other cabinet nominees also took place on Monday, including nominee for Deputy Prime Minister Chu Kyung-ho, whose role doubles as finance minister.
We aimed for a full economic recovery and new growth by ensuring comprehensive compensation to small businesses hit by pandemic restrictions, along with more financial assistance.
In the coming weeks, hearings for a total of 18 minister picks will take place. They won't require approval by Parliament, but will need a recommendation from the Prime Minister. The sooner the PM gets approved, the sooner the cabinet will be launched. President-elect Yoon's initial plan was to launch his cabinet as soon as he takes office, but the delay in Han's confirmation hearing could cause a change to that plan. 이경은, Arirang News.
Yoon's pick for foreign minister vowed to make South Korea a pivotal country in pursuing freedom, peace and prosperity in the world. Park Jin also highlighted the importance of a strong Seoul-Washington alliance. Kim Da-mi has the details.
The incoming South Korean government's new diplomatic stance will be to become a country that is pivotal to contributing to global freedom, peace and prosperity. That's according to Foreign Minister nominee Park Jin speaking to lawmakers during his confirmation hearing on Monday. He said such goal will be based on a robust Seoul-Washington alliance to strengthen the central axis of South Korea's diplomacy. That includes successfully preparing a summit between the incoming President Yoon Suk-yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden in Seoul this month. Park added the Yoon administration will seek to play a greater role for peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula, East Asia, as well as the Indo-Pacific region by participating in Indo-Pacific Economic Framework and Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. In fact, according to Park, South Korea is considering attending a North Atlantic Treaty Organization summit in Madrid late next month upon NATO's invitation. Pointing out the unstable situation on the Korean Peninsula, Park pledged a commitment to international cooperation for the implementation of sanctions on Pyongyang to make the regime realize that nothing can be achieved while it keeps up its nuclear weapon program. But he also made sure to note the door for dialogue will remain open and left room for humanitarian aid and economic cooperation if the North moves towards substantive progress in denuclearization. Regarding Seoul-Tokyo relations, the nominee said the new administration will build a cooperative relationship that meets common interests and values based on correct historical understanding. The National Assembly will hold a confirmation hearing for the nominee for Unification Minister Kwon Young-se next Thursday. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Now, in the meantime, the head of the Presidential Transition Committee emphasized the government's digital systems are outdated and blocked off from each other. An Chul-soo pointed out by unifying them, public services will reach an unprecedented level of efficiency and businesses will be able to innovate. Kim Do-yeon with the latest.
On Monday, Presidential Transition Committee's Chairman An Chul-soo announced the incoming Yoon Suk-yeol administration will connect all personal governmental data among its agencies and open public data up to citizens, dubbing it the biggest change in South Korean history.
The current governmental system does not reflect the current digital world at all. Why? It's because there are around 17,000 data systems in the country's government, but all have been walled against each other.
He said, when the data systems are combined, individual citizens will experience much simpler bureaucratic processes, and the nation's data industry, such as artificial intelligence-related businesses, will be able to be more innovative. This will help when checking personal information or verifying your identity online. The digital platform government will work under 5 new directions. The first one being to create projects that citizens can actually experience and adjusted public policies that will reach out to eligible citizens first. The government will also make decisions based on scientific AI data. Public data will also be open to public and private institutions unless rules specifically restrict its disclosure, and the data will be kept secure. The goal is to complete the framework of this cross-governmental digital platform within the first 3 years of Yoon's term and pass a law to make it official. But until then, the government will have to earn the public's trust and reach a consensus that such a change in policies is a good move. Chairman An said the team is trying its best to make sure the data are secure and suggested they could decide to use blockchain technology. But uses of blockchain in other countries have involved smaller populations. So the policy could start small at the local level and slowly expand into bigger regions. In the meantime, on Tuesday, Chairman An will also be sharing the list of incoming Yoon administration's policy tasks that the Transition Committee has finalized, which has been kept under wraps to avoid any confusion or hiccups during the process. As of now, the team has announced that under its vision of going forward again and prospering together, the team came up with 6 directions and 110 specific policy tasks. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
It's now time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories right now. The US and 60 other countries issued a joint declaration last Thursday for the future of the internet, vowing to promote human rights, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law in the digital realm.
That's right. However, South Korea, despite being a traditional ally of the United States, has yet to join the declaration, although officials here say the invitation remains open to all countries. Now, to get our experts' insight on the declaration and South Korea's prospects, we connect with Kim Jae-chun, Dean of Seogang Graduate School of International Studies. Professor Kim, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's good to be here.
So let's kind of start off with the declaration in itself. What are the main points of the specific declaration, and why is it so important in the so-called digital era?
Well, internet has become an integral part of everyday life for about past 30 years. Basically, many people in many countries enjoy freedom of speech on the internet. Sure, there are some regulations that apply to the digital realm and norms that you have to follow on the internet, but near consensus is that there's got to be freedom of press on the internet. However, in some parts of the world, internet is heavily censored. Basically, there is no freedom of speech. Rather, internet has become the tool of the dictatorial rulers. You know, these dictators basically monopolize the internet space and manipulate the information. I mean, think about the Russian government controlling the internet space and use internet as a tool of propaganda and misinformation. And Russian public doesn't have access to what's really going on in war in Ukraine. It's just not Russia, but in many other countries, rulers are using internet as a tool of rule to control the society. And this will have to stop. I mean, everybody in every country will have to benefit from the internet. So I think this is the purpose of the declaration. This is the reason why the US and some 60 other countries got together and issued a joint declaration on the internet freedom.
And Professor Kim, what was quite surprising was that despite being one of the US's staunchest allies, South Korea was not actually involved in this declaration. It wasn't in the list of countries that signed on to this. So why do you think that is? And do you think it will eventually join the effort?
I think South Korea will eventually join the declaration. It'll take some time, though. It's not like the Moon Jae-in government is opposed to this declaration. In fact, the Moon Jae-in government has been quite proactive in promoting what is known as a fair and free digital governance. But the only concern is that it's time of leadership transition in South Korea. The new Yoon Suk-yeol government will come into power soon, and joining the declaration will have to be the decision of the new government in South Korea. This declaration is not a one-time thing. There will be a series of international initiatives to establish fair and free digital governance. And I'm pretty sure that the new South Korean government will join the declaration. Actually, not only will it join the declaration, I think the new South Korean government will play a more proactive role in establishing robust and healthier digital governance in the world.
Right, and especially with Chief of the Transition Committee, Chuncheon, kind of pushing towards that side as well. I wanted to kind of talk about something that's sort of linked to what we're talking about today, the Press Freedom Index. If you look at that ranking in itself, South Korea is considered a quote-unquote satisfactory country, which means, we relatively have our freedom when it comes to freedom of press, speech, and so forth. But certainly there could be some room for improvement. What are some of the areas where South Korea can actually improve on?
Yes, according to the Press Freedom Index, South Korea actually ranks first among many other Asian countries. And this is 3 years in a row, so the record is quite impressive. But that said, South Korea will have to improve on managing public broadcasting companies, like Arirang Broadcasting Company. It is recommended that governance structure in public broadcasting companies will have to improve so that more independence could be granted to these companies. And it is also recommended that the government should not summarily prosecute these people who disseminate sensitive information on North Korea. But inter-Korean relations is at its worst right now. And in South Korea, we have what is known as national security law. So I don't think we can improve on that aspect in any time soon.
And Professor, well, the US didn't really mention or make mention of any countries in particular, but perhaps what's unsaid is a bit more significant here. And well, do you see this as a way that Washington is further isolating the likes of Beijing and Pyongyang?
I don't think the US is trying to further isolate China and North Korea by issuing this declaration. In fact, it's the other way around. We want these countries to be integrated to free internet space internationally. And in order for that to happen, the United States, together with some 60 like-minded countries, these countries need to put some pressure on dictatorial leadership in China and North Korea. These countries where media is heavily censored and internet is used as a tool of suppression. In China, it is alleged the central government is using internet space and 5G, these apps on your smartphones to monitor racial minorities in Xinjiang, these Uyghurs in Xinjiang, and also Tibetans to a certain extent. And the situation is no better in North Korea. We all know that. So we can't really improve the situation in these countries all at once. But if we continuously put pressure by issuing these declarations, we hope that the situation will get better eventually.
Just like you said, China, North Korea, Russia, these are some of the countries that really use the internet and the media to kind of spread their propaganda. So it is going to be pretty tough, but nevertheless, like you said, we still can't give up on this, right? Professor Kim, thank you very much for your insights today, and really looking forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you.
With COVID-19 figures declining in South Korea, people are no longer required to wear masks outdoors, except in select circumstances. Choi Min-jung takes us closer to the scene.
People in South Korea are no longer required to wear masks outside at most venues. After almost a year and a half on Monday, the outdoor mask mandate was lifted, allowing people to be free from masks in outdoor settings like hiking trails, outdoor weddings, and above-ground outdoor subway stations. This means people will no longer be fined for not wearing masks when standing less than 2 meters apart from others when outside.
The weather is getting hot, so I'm happy not to have my mask on. I didn't wear the mask when I was cycling because I don't make contact with others anyway, and I wanted to feel the cool breeze.
So it was pretty strange coming here, and when you went outside, even when there's no one around, you should wear it as well. So I think it's a good timing to lift the mask, especially now when the big peak of COVID is like a little bit over, and I think people are really like hungry for some freedom, I think, yeah.
But considering that it's still day one of the mandate being lifted, most people out in the streets had their masks on.
It's really comfortable for me now that we can take our masks off, but there are still a lot of people who have them on, so we can't be oblivious to others.
People must remember that the mask mandate has only been lifted for outdoor settings. So if you want to use the public transport like the subway, you must remember to put your mask back on. People will still have to wear masks indoors, like in buildings, as well as when riding buses, subways, and taxis. Mask wearing is also still mandatory when attending outdoor rallies, concerts, or sport events with 50 or more people. Also, wearing masks is recommended in places where it is difficult to maintain a distance of more than 1 meter from others for more than 15 minutes. So it's recommended that masks still be worn at places like amusement parks or at the beach. Masks are also strongly advised for those who have COVID-19 symptoms or those who are at high risk of infection, such as the elderly or those who have not been vaccinated. 최민정, Arirang News.
Now, the amount of groceries and delivery food ordered online in Q1 rose to an all-time high, along with the surge in people in self-isolation. Now, according to Statistics Korea, the value of online shopping transactions for the first 3 months rose to more than 49 trillion won. That's about $40 billion and is an increase of 11.8% on year. Now, online spending for groceries rose by 17.4%, while food services, mostly delivery, saw an increase of 20.5%, both reaching record highs. Now, this as in the first quarter, the daily virus tally was at one point in the hundreds of thousands. Now, the price of palm oil almost doubled since 2020. It is a vital ingredient in all kinds of products like snacks and cosmetics, which have really become more expensive. Now, at the same time, interest rates are rising and the Korean currency is weakening. A local think tank fears the combination of these factors could lead to a stagflation. Ji-young zooms in on this phenomenon.
The impact of the war in Ukraine and Indonesia's expanded ban on exports of palm oil means higher prices and more expensive trips to the supermarkets for consumers.
Consumer prices overall have risen sharply, but in particular, prices of snacks and ramyeon have gone up. It's burdensome, so it would be nice if some discounts are offered.
According to the Korea Customs Service, the price of palm oil in March stood at around $1,450 per ton, soaring by more than 40% on year. It's a surge of around 95% compared to the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Palm oil is vital for most of the world's packaged consumer products, ranging from snacks and processed foods to cooking oil and even cleaning products and cosmetics. Roughly 70% of all U.S. cosmetics products use some palm oil, and in South Korea, consumers are seeing price hikes of 10% for more than 80 cosmetic products. Firms are responding to the situation by using what they have in storage, and they're also preparing for further price rises.
We are using palm oil from Malaysia, and there is no problem in terms of supply as of yet, as we are maintaining stable partnerships with our many global contractors. But as further price hikes are expected, we are seeking ways to brace for them.
During a government emergency meeting on Monday regarding Indonesia's palm oil export ban, the Ministry of Trade and Industry says the food industry has 2 to 4 months' worth of stock. The ministry added that it'll step up its monitoring of the global supply chain and the supply of palm oil in South Korea. With the rising prices of goods, a recent study says uncertainty in the South Korean economy is forecast to grow in the second half of the year. A report by local think tank Hyundai Research Institute says the country's economy is experiencing high inflation, high interest rates, and a weaker Korean won against the dollar, possibly leading to stagflation. The institute added that soaring inflation and a hike in key interest rates will cause consumer spending to shrink and higher interest rates on debt repayments for firms and households. 엄지영, Arirang News.
It's time for Global Insights, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Will the world's richest man become the champion of free speech and online democracy? Elon Musk last week struck a $44 billion deal to buy social media firm Twitter, making it an offer it couldn't refuse. After publicly criticizing the company over everything from its declining popularity, its uninspiring services to content moderation, Musk decided to run the company himself. Now, it's unclear what his exact plans are for the company and how they will be realized, but for now, we can only speculate. We discuss whether the world's #1 IT mogul can achieve his digital utopia of what he called free speech and maximum fun. Now, for today's Global Insight, we're joined by Lee Dang-yeok, professor at Korea University's Business School, as well as CEO of LEGOLAND, and Daryl West, senior fellow at the Center for Tech Innovation at Brookings Institution. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning. And well, my first question goes to you, Professor Lee. Now, this takeover, it surprised many people, but it raised a common question of why? Now, Musk said that he's going to do it for free speech and democracy, and of course he's criticized Twitter's content control, but as much as free speech is critical to democracy, of course we have disinformation, we have hate speech. These kind of elements, they're very harmful to societies, and Musk himself, he's no stranger to controversy. He's posted numerous tweets that stir confusion and, among many people. But now, what is his idea, Professor Lee, of free speech? And do you think it's really going to benefit democracy?
There are some critics like Mr. Musk is going to spend around $44 billion to keep his right to speak freely for himself, because many of his tweets has been seriously criticized. And then also, especially the former President Donald Trump, his Twitter account was banned. So I think this kind of recent event might have affected his decision to really keep his freedom of speech by acquiring Twitter, which is a leading platform for mainly information related to politics and many social issues. That would be his personal reason. And of course, in general, Twitter and Facebook and other social network services like LinkedIn have been evolving in different fashion. For example, many people are using LinkedIn for professional purpose, and Facebook very personal, and Twitter is located in the middle, and their users are using Twitter for mainly disseminate their ideas and their really opinion freely in massive, unlimited way. So probably he might have a very positive opinion about to keep this kind of usage of Twitter as agora for conversation and debate and discussion on politics on a global scale.
And Dr. West, I wonder how you see this. Do you think Musk is really championing free speech, or is there a chance that he's going to weaponize it?
Well, there is the risk that he may weaponize freedom of speech, because the way Elon Musk defines free speech is any speech that is lawful, meaning anything that is legal, he thinks people should be allowed to say on social media sites. But of course, the problem is there are many things that are perfectly legal but are outrageous or false. During COVID, we've seen a lot of false information circulate in the United States as well as other places around the world about vaccines, wearing masks, and other aspects of the pandemic. A lot of that stuff is perfectly legal, but we don't want algorithms to spread that information, to spread false information. And so there's a real danger for democracy if Musk absolutist freedom of speech stance really takes hold, because there will likely be more extreme rhetoric on social media sites, more hate speech, more things that pit group against group, and therefore makes it difficult to have reasonable discussion on various issues.
And Professor Lee, well, one of the biggest issues that Musk has had with Twitter is the banning of accounts that allegedly violate the platform's policies. So how does Twitter generally moderate content, and what do you think will be Musk's approach to changing it to make Twitter what he called politically neutral digital town square?
I think that is quite paradoxical, because the way that he wanted to require Twitter is to make the Twitter be private. Currently, Twitter is a listed company under lots of different type of control, inside control as well as external control. However, once he acquires Twitter, it's going to be private, even though he claimed that he will make algorithm be open, which can be neutral. However, I think this private company will not be as much as, in a way, controlled or counter-weighted by the public as well as the regulators. So that is, I think, very paradoxical point of his move to acquire Twitter.
And Dr. West, well, Musk plans to make Twitter what he called, again, politically neutral digital town square. But at the same time, he's tweeted things like the far left hates everyone, including themselves. And he's also generated some concern that Donald Trump might come back on Twitter. And, well, what would be the ramifications of Musk taking on Twitter? Do you think it's going to further drive polarization in US politics?
I think it will make American politics more polarized, and that already is a huge problem in the United States. And the Trump case is really an interesting example of this, in the sense that the old management basically banned Trump from Twitter for his lifetime because of his role in inciting the violence where the mob stormed the U.S. Capitol building a year ago. But Musk, if he takes his freedom of speech stance seriously, may argue that Trump is a popular political figure among certain circles in the United States. He certainly is a legitimate news source. He may actually run for president in 2024 and then use those arguments to basically bring Trump back onto the platform. And if that happens, of course, Trump was very divisive when he was president. Twitter was his megaphone in which he would announce his positions to the world. It was very contentious. He did make disparaging comments about many people, about women, about racial minorities, about immigrants. And so if Musk plans to either bring Trump back or allow such a wide range of freedom of speech that those types of very contentious things appear on social media platforms, polarization will end up getting worse in the United States.
And Professor Lee, Musk also, well, he pretty much declared a war on spam bots, and he said he will aim to authenticate all real human beings. Now, is this going to be feasible, though? How do you think he's going to approach this?
Yes, technically, which is possible. There's a very solid algorithm to filter the accounts which are owned and operated by algorithm instead of real human. So technically, which is possible. However, it's going to be also controversial whether to allow or not that kind of a bot-based Twitter account. I think those kind of discussion need to be, I think, handled much more publicly. That was my point of view. Once he acquires a Twitter, it's going to be private. I'm not sure whether there will be enough discussion and a kind of transparency, even vis-a-vis his position, the fight against war against those bot-based, non-human Twitter accounts.
And Dr. West, now some fear that Musk undermining Twitter's enforcement of its community guidelines might expose and compromise the safety of political activists, journalists and minorities in some jurisdictions. Now, how do you think these concerns need to be addressed?
That certainly is a legitimate worry, because many countries around the world are turning authoritarian. They're cracking down on the political opposition. They're weakening the news media and their ability to hold leaders accountable. So if the standard is local community guidelines, and the local laws or the national laws in particular countries are very repressive, then the risk is that that Musk's Twitter may actually expose dissidents and journalists to much greater danger. So I think we have to be careful to watch how he actually uses the platform, how he identifies people. Right now, people can be anonymous on Twitter. Musk has said he wants to remove anonymity and verify people's actual identity. And so I think these are all things that in repressive regimes and in authoritarian countries could pose a lot of risks for people.
And Dr. West, another question for you now. Jeff Bezos, he raised concern that Elon Musk might be influenced by China, given Tesla's business interests in Beijing. Now, is such a concern legitimate, and how might such influence be manifested?
Well, Tesla, Musk's other company, is building a factory in China. I think it's right outside of Shanghai, has a lot of business interest in China. And Musk himself has cultivated close ties with the Chinese leadership. And so there is concern that when Musk takes control of Twitter, that there may be a change in the geopolitics of that social media platform, which now has criticized China for various domestic and foreign policies. And so I think everybody will be watching to see how Twitter handles the possible conflicts between Musk's business interests, either in Tesla or in SpaceX, versus how he actually runs Twitter.
And now, Professor Lee, now moving to the business side of things, does this still make sense? I mean, Twitter shares, they were trading below $40. That's not that much more than its IPO price of $26 in November of 2013. And well, since then, a number of other social media platforms have been popping up, and Twitter's user growth has been slowing down in recent years. And of course, Musk's been one of its biggest critics. So first of all, what's been causing Twitter to decline, and do you think Musk can actually turn things around?
So already there was a strong signal because Twitter's stock price has been risen to $49 per stock. So already 20% of increase. That means that there's a Musk effect on Twitter, because Twitter, even though it has been stabilized and generating profit, however, it doesn't really was not able to provide the vision compared to other kind of social network services. So I think the transition of control from current board to Mr. Musk may be a kind of pivotal timing for Twitter if everything goes into the right direction.
Well, this is where we're going to have to wrap up today. That was Lee Jang-hyuk, Professor at Korea University's Business School, and Daryl West, Senior Fellow at the Center for Tech Innovation at Brookings Institution. Again, thank you both so much for your insights today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, South Korea's Presidential Transition Committee announced Monday that a total of 26,000 people have been chosen to tour the Blue House on its first day open to the public. Now, that's about 1 out of 3.5 applicants from the nearly 91,000 people that signed up for the tour on May 10th. Now, on the first day of the tour, the Blue House will be open to the public from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. But starting May 11th, it will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with up to 39,000 people a day able to visit. Now, in order for the Blue House to fully open up to the public, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol will move to his executive office to the Defense Ministry compound by Inauguration Day. Now, of course, with distancing measures coming to an end, many families, especially with kids, will be looking for things to do and places to go on Children's Day coming up later this week. Now, one new attraction they can visit is the recently built LEGOLAND Korea Resort. Well, our Kim Bo-kyung had the chance to check it out during the preview session.
Just in time for the spring, the highly anticipated global amusement park has finally been built. The 10th of its kind in the world and first global theme park in the country, LEGOLAND Korea officially opens on Children's Day. It has over 40 rides in 7 zones, covering an area of 280,000 square meters. Visitors during the trial opening period were excited to bring their kids to the theme park.
My kid loves Lego. He has been staying indoors, but is now playing outside and also seeing Lego on a much bigger size. He's very excited, and I'm very satisfied.
The head of the resort says the theme park is a different experience compared to other resorts around the world as it is situated on an island.
So LEGOLAND Korea Resort is a truly phenomenal destination. It is the first time that we are truly built on an island here in Gangwon Province in Chuncheon. We're very, very excited to be surrounded by the water and the mountains. To me, my favorite ride is the observation tower, so the LEGOLAND lookout. You can see this whole region and the mountains, the water surrounding the island. It's absolutely beautiful.
Another unique feature is the mini-land at the heart of the park, where visitors can see Korean landmarks made out of Lego. Here at Miniland, 8 major South Korean landmarks, including Gyeongbokgung Palace and the National Assembly, have been reproduced with Lego bricks. Around 100 Lego masters took 3 months to make these, using over 7 million bricks. With the global amusement park now in town, Chuncheon residents are anticipating a boost to regional tourism and the economy. Currently, LEGOLAND Korea is expecting 2 million visitors a year and could bring around 9,000 new jobs and $465 million to the economy per year. Yet an expert says efforts should be made to make sure it properly boosts the regional economy.
Disneyland in Hong Kong is on the outskirts of town. The city prepared travel packages for people to visit both the downtown and the amusement park through a well-developed traffic system. Chuncheon City too needs to think about such matters. Recently, the traveling trend is to go to a site where one can enjoy its regional locality. Chuncheon has lots of such sites, including Nami Island and Myeongdong Dakgalbi Alley, so the city should connect such sites.
Residents are hoping LEGOLAND Korea could contribute to the local economy while giving kids a wonderful time. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Chuncheon.
For a look at news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you guys.
Good morning to you, Matthew. Now let's begin with a look at the United States as a wildfire that started almost a month ago continues to sweep across the southwest of the country.
Well, that's right, Seung-jae. So thousands of residents in the U.S. state of New Mexico evacuated their homes on Sunday to escape an advancing wildfire. Now, the fire, which started on April 6th, has destroyed hundreds of homes and led to residents abandoning settlements in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Winds of up to 64 kilometers per hour have blown embers up to a mile away, starting new blazes that have since merged together. Satellite imagery shows that as of Sunday, almost 104,000 acres of land have been burned. According to officials, over 1,100 firefighters have been deployed to contain the blaze, as experts predict that the fire could potentially double in size. So far, no deaths or injuries have been reported. Turning over to Israel now, as the country on Monday criticized Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov for claiming that Adolf Hitler had Jewish roots. Lavrov made the statement on Italian television on Sunday, responding to a question asking why Russia said it needed to, quote, denazify Ukraine, as Volodymyr Zelensky, the country's president, is Jewish himself. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has since summoned the Russian ambassador and demanded an apology, adding that the statement trivializes the horrors of the Holocaust. UEFA has banned Russian teams from the upcoming competitions, including the Women's European Championships in July and qualifying matches for next year's Women's World Cup. According to a statement on Monday by Europe's football governing body, the decision follows Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Portugal will take Russia's place in Group C at the Women's Euros. UEFA also cast out Russia's bid to host the Men's European Championship in 2028 and 2032. That means just the bid from the UK and Ireland and the bid from Turkey are still in the running to host Euro 2028. Russian clubs are also banned from competing in the UEFA Champions League, Europa League or Europa Conference League next season. In an effort to set up the world's highest meteorological monitoring station, Chinese scientists will climb to an altitude of 8,800 meters. And if successful, the new station located on Mount Chomolungma on the China-Nepal border will claim the title from another station in the area that sits at an altitude of 8,430 meters. Project engineers are currently waiting for optimal weather conditions to begin their climb. The team has already set up 3 other stations at heights between 7,000 to 8,300 meters and are also planning to install a glacier radar to measure the thickness of the snow and ice at the mountain's summit. The Italian Alps were lit up by 29 light installations on Sunday as part of a light festival in Bressanone. Titled Water is Life and Light is Art, this year's water-themed festival marked the 4th time it's been hosted by the city and saw different works of art connected by a 3.2-kilometer-long blue line, creating an art trail through the old town. With pieces dedicated to topics from global warming to space photography, the Light Festival is slated to continue until May 22nd. However, a change is scheduled in the festival's theme, with light to become the focus on May 16th to coincide with the United Nations International Day of Light.
Good morning. Well, it was a bit windy, but a very fine late spring day yesterday. It looks to be another promising day under lots of sunshine. And again, temperatures today are a bit below normal for this time of the year, with wide gaps in the readings expected. Plenty of sunshine comes along with a cooler breeze these days, but remember, the UV rays are just as strong and just as likely to cause sunburn and sun damage, so wear sunscreen that has a sun protection factor of 30 or higher today. Well, it's been bright ever since sunrise this morning, and there's a breezy start for most parts, having similar morning temperatures to the same time yesterday in most areas. Then highs will be 1 to 3 degrees higher this afternoon. Seoul going up to 20 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju topping out at 24 degrees this afternoon with normal to good air quality nationwide. And as Children's Day comes on Thursday this year, many might be taking Friday off as well for a long holiday weekend. Well, you might want to plan accordingly as rain is in the forecast on late Friday into early Saturday in central parts of the country. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that's going to wrap up our newscast for this morning, but we'll be back tomorrow for our Wednesday's edition of New Day at Arirang.
But do stick around, we have more updates coming for you throughout the day. But until then, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Goodbye.